my name is Margaret Thompson, and I'm 28 years old. Last Thanksgiving changed everything I thought I knew about family, business, and revenge. I was sitting at our dining table, watching my father carve the turkey with the same precision he used to carve up my dreams for 30 years. The crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier, the same one that had witnessed countless family dinners, where I was reminded that successful business was a man's world. My two older brothers, William and David, were already celebrating something I didn't know about yet. There was this electric tension in the air, like everyone was holding their breath for some big announcement. I should have seen it coming, but nothing could have prepared me for what my father was about to say. Before I tell you what happened that changed everything, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that'll make you believe in justice. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. To understand what happened at that Thanksgiving, you need to know about Thompson Industries and how my family built their empire on the foundation of excluding me from everything that mattered. My father, Robert Thompson, started this construction company 35 years ago in our garage, with nothing but a pickup truck, a toolbox, and an unshakable belief that women had no place in business. He worked 18-hour days, slept 4 hours a night, and built Thompson Industries from that single truck into a construction empire worth $50 million. The company specialized in commercial real estate development, and by the time I was 10 years old, we had crews working on office buildings, shopping centers, and luxury apartment complexes across 3 states. My older brother William, now 35, was groomed from birth to be the heir apparent. Dad took him to construction sites when he was barely tall enough to wear a hard hat properly. William learned to read blueprints before he could read chapter books, and by high school, he was already being introduced to clients as the future CEO. He became vice president of marketing at 25, and honestly, he was good at schmoozing clients and closing deals. William had this natural charisma that made contractors and investors trust him instantly. David, my middle brother at 32, took a different path but still found his place in the family business. He became vice president of operations, overseeing the day-to-day management of our construction crews. David was the guy who could solve problems on site, negotiate with union representatives, and keep projects running on schedule. He had this laid-back personality that workers loved, and he genuinely understood the construction business from the ground up. Then there was me. From the time I could walk, I was fascinated by the business side of what Dad was building. While other little girls were playing with dolls, I was studying the financial reports Dad left on his desk. I taught myself to understand profit margins, cash flow statements, and project budgets. When I was 12, I suggested a cost-saving measure that would have saved the company $40,000 on a single project. Dad patted my head and told me to go help Mom in the kitchen. Every time I tried to get involved, I was shut down with the same phrase. "Sweetheart, this isn't for girls. You should focus on finding a nice husband who can take care of you." When I graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA and got accepted to business school, Dad reluctantly agreed to pay my tuition, but only because he thought it would help me manage household finances when I got married. I spent 4 years in college studying finance, accounting, and business management, graduating summa cum laude with a degree in business administration. I came home excited to finally join Thompson Industries, armed with fresh knowledge and innovative ideas that could take the company to the next level. I had detailed plans for expanding into sustainable construction, implementing new project management software, and developing strategic partnerships that could increase our profit margins by 30%. Dad listened to my presentation for exactly 7 minutes before cutting me off. "Margaret, this company needs experienced leadership, not classroom theories. Your brothers have been working here for years. They understand how things really work." That was the day I realized that no amount of education, no level of competence, and no brilliant ideas would ever be enough to earn my place at Thompson Industries. The decision had been made before I was even born. I was 22 years old when I made the decision that would change my life forever. After being rejected from Thompson Industries for the 3rd time, I decided to stop asking for permission to succeed. I moved out of the family house, got my own apartment, and cut myself off from any financial support from my parents. If they wouldn't let me into their business, I would build my own. I started by working as a junior analyst at a small investment firm downtown, making $35,000 a year. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I lived in a studio apartment that was smaller than my childhood bedroom, ate ramen noodles for dinner most nights, and spent every free moment studying real estate investment strategies. I was determined to prove that I could succeed without the Thompson name or Thompson money. My first real estate investment came 8 months later. I had saved every penny I could, working overtime and taking on freelance financial consulting projects on weekends. I managed to scrape together $15,000 for a down payment on a small duplex in a neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. The property needed work, but I could see the potential that others missed. I spent my evenings and weekends renovating that duplex myself. I learned to install flooring, paint walls, and fix leaky faucets through YouTube videos and sheer determination. After 3 months of backbreaking work, I had transformed a rundown property into an attractive rental unit. I rented out both sides for $1,200 each, giving me a monthly cash flow of $1,800 after expenses. That first success gave me the confidence and capital to make my second investment. Within a year, I owned 3 rental properties and was generating enough passive income to quit my day job and focus on real estate full-time. I developed a systematic approach to finding undervalued properties in emerging neighborhoods, renovating them efficiently, and either renting them for cash flow or selling them for quick profits. By my 24th birthday, I had flipped 12 houses and owned 8 rental properties. My net worth had grown to over $400,000. But more importantly, I had learned every aspect of the real estate business from the ground up. I understood construction costs, market timing, tenant management, and property valuation better than most people with decades of experience. That's when I made the decision to start Everest Holdings. I chose the name because I wanted to conquer the highest peaks in real estate investment, and I wanted a company name that would command respect in boardrooms across the country. I incorporated the business with $500,000 in capital and a clear vision to become the premier real estate investment company in the region. My strategy with Everest Holdings was different from the small-scale residential investments I had been making. I focused on commercial real estate opportunities that required larger amounts of capital but offered substantially higher returns. My first major deal was acquiring a small office building that was facing foreclosure. The previous owner had over-leveraged himself and couldn't make the mortgage payments. I purchased the building for 60% of its appraised value, invested another $100,000 in renovations and improvements, and within 6 months had it fully leased to professional tenants paying premium rents. That single investment generated a 400% return in less than a year and established Everest Holdings as a serious player in the commercial real estate market. From there, the business grew exponentially. I assembled a team of the best real estate professionals in the city, experienced contractors who could complete renovations quickly and cost-effectively, property managers who could maintain high occupancy rates, and financial analysts who could identify the most profitable investment opportunities. Within 2 years, Everest Holdings had acquired over 20 commercial properties and was managing a portfolio worth $15 million. The key to my success was staying completely under the radar. I used a complex structure of limited liability companies and legal trusts to keep my name off public records. When I negotiated deals, I worked through attorneys and business managers who never revealed my identity. As far as anyone in the business community knew, Everest Holdings was owned by a mysterious investor who preferred to remain anonymous. This secrecy served 2 purposes. First, it allowed me to negotiate better deals because sellers couldn't research my background or net worth before entering negotiations. Second, and more importantly, it kept my family completely unaware of my success. As far as they knew, I was still struggling to make ends meet as a failed real estate agent. While I was building my real estate empire in secret, Thompson Industries was heading toward a financial disaster that would threaten everything my grandfather had worked to build. The problem started about 2 years ago when my brother William convinced Dad to invest heavily in a luxury residential development project in the suburbs. The project seemed like a sure thing on paper. It was a gated community of custom homes, targeting wealthy executives who wanted to live outside the city but still maintain an easy commute to downtown. William had done his market research and identified what he thought was huge demand for high-end suburban housing. Dad approved a $15 million investment to purchase the land and begin construction on the first phase of homes. What William didn't anticipate was the sudden shift in the real estate market that happened 6 months into the project. Interest rates rose faster than anyone expected, making it much more expensive for potential buyers to get mortgages for luxury homes. At the same time, a major employer in the area announced they were relocating their headquarters to another state, eliminating thousands of high-paying jobs that our target customers depended on. The combination of higher borrowing costs and reduced local employment created a perfect storm that killed demand for expensive suburban homes. Houses that William had projected would sell for $800,000 were sitting empty with no qualified buyers. After 18 months, Thompson Industries had sold only 3 of the 40 homes they had built, and they were still carrying the construction loans on 37 empty houses. The financial impact was devastating. Thompson Industries was paying carrying costs of over $60,000 per month on unsold inventory, while receiving almost no revenue from the residential division. The commercial construction business was still profitable, but not enough to offset the massive losses from the failed residential project. Making matters worse, my brother David had been using the company credit cards for personal expenses that had nothing to do with business operations. He had charged luxury vacations, expensive dinners, and even a new Porsche to company accounts, justifying these purchases as business development expenses or client entertainment. Over 2 years, David had racked up over $300,000 in personal charges that the company was legally obligated to pay. Dad was aware of both problems, but refused to admit how serious the situation had become. He was approaching his 65th birthday and had spent his entire adult life building Thompson Industries into a successful company. The idea that his sons might have destroyed everything he had worked for was too painful for him to accept. Instead of taking decisive action to address the financial problems, Dad chose to hide the extent of the crisis from everyone, including William and David. He stopped holding regular financial meetings, started making excuses to avoid reviewing monthly profit and loss statements, and began exploring options for selling the company before the situation became public. The irony was that Dad's secrecy made the financial situation even worse. William didn't realize how badly his residential development project had damaged the company's finances, so he continued making optimistic projections and planning new investments. David had no idea that his personal spending was contributing to a cash flow crisis, so he kept charging personal expenses to company accounts. Through my connections in the local business community, I started hearing rumors about Thompson Industries' financial troubles about 6 months ago. Real estate is a small world, and word travels fast when a major construction company starts missing payment deadlines or asking for extended terms from suppliers. I discreetly investigated the situation and discovered that Thompson Industries was in much worse shape than I had imagined. They owed over $8 million to various creditors, had negative cash flow of nearly $200,000 per month, and were facing potential bankruptcy within 6 months if they couldn't find a buyer or secure additional financing. That's when I made the decision to intervene. Not out of family loyalty, but because I couldn't stand to watch my grandfather's legacy be destroyed by incompetence and poor management. I instructed my attorneys to contact Thompson Industries and express interest in purchasing the company on behalf of an anonymous buyer. The negotiations took 3 months, during which Dad became increasingly desperate to find a solution. Several potential buyers had looked at Thompson Industries but walked away once they saw the true financial condition. Dad was running out of options when Everest Holdings submitted an offer to purchase the company for $50 million, enough to pay off all debts and leave him with a substantial profit. The invitation to Thanksgiving dinner came as a complete surprise. I hadn't been invited to a family holiday in over 3 years, not since the last time I had asked Dad about working for Thompson Industries. The phone call came from my mother, who seemed unusually nervous as she extended the invitation. "Margaret, your father wanted me to call and invite you to Thanksgiving this year," she said, her voice carrying an odd tone I couldn't quite identify. "He's been thinking about family lately, and he wants all his children to be there for what might be a very special occasion." I should have been suspicious about the sudden change in attitude, but honestly, I was hopeful that maybe Dad had finally come to his senses about including me in the family. Maybe he had realized that pushing away his own daughter for all these years had been a mistake. Maybe this was his way of extending an olive branch and opening the door to a better relationship. I spent the week before Thanksgiving carefully planning what I would wear and what I would say. I wanted to look successful but not ostentatious, confident but not arrogant. I chose a simple but elegant navy blue dress that conveyed professionalism without being flashy. I didn't want to give anyone a reason to dismiss me before I had a chance to speak. The morning of Thanksgiving, I had a conference call with my attorney to finalize the last details of the Thompson Industries acquisition. All the paperwork was ready, all the financing was in place, and all we needed was Dad's signature on the final purchase agreement. The transaction was scheduled to close the following Monday, which meant that in just 4 days, I would officially own the company that had rejected me for my entire life. "Are you sure you want to go through with this, Margaret?" my attorney asked during our call. "Once this becomes public, there's no going back. Your family relationships will never be the same." I had been asking myself the same question for months. Was I buying Thompson Industries to save it from bankruptcy, or was I doing it for revenge? Was this about justice, or was it about proving a point? The honest answer was probably a little bit of both. "I'm sure," I told him. This company means everything to my grandfather's memory, and I'm not going to let it be destroyed because of pride and incompetence. If my family can't see past their prejudices to recognize my capabilities, then maybe it's time they learned the hard way. I drove to my childhood home with a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. The house looked exactly the same as it had when I was growing up. A massive colonial-style mansion with perfectly manicured landscaping and an enormous circular driveway. Everything about the property was designed to project success and establish dominance, which had always been Dad's approach to life. William and David were already there when I arrived, and both of them greeted me with unusual enthusiasm. William gave me a hug that lasted just a little too long, and David complimented my dress and asked detailed questions about my life that he had never shown interest in before. Their behavior was so out of character that I immediately knew something was happening. "Margaret, you look fantastic," William said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's been too long since we've all been together as a family." Dad's been saying how much he misses having his little girl around. The condescending tone in his voice when he said "little girl" reminded me exactly why I had distanced myself from these people in the first place. At 28 years old, after building a $50 million company from scratch, I was still being treated like a child who couldn't understand adult conversations. The Thanksgiving meal started normally enough, with Dad carving the turkey and Mom bustling around the kitchen making sure everyone had enough food on their plates. The conversation was polite but strained, covering safe topics like the weather, local news, and carefully avoiding anything related to business or family conflicts. I could tell that everyone was waiting for something, but I played along with the charade and acted like I didn't notice the undercurrent of tension running through every interaction. William kept checking his phone and exchanging meaningful glances with David. Dad seemed more animated than usual, like he was building up to some kind of big announcement. About halfway through the meal, Dad suddenly stood up and tapped his wine glass with his fork to get everyone's attention. "I have something important to share with all of you," he announced, his voice carrying the same authority he used in business meetings. "This family is about to enter a new chapter, and I want everyone to hear this news together." My mother stopped eating and gave Dad her full attention. William and David sat up straighter in their chairs, and I could see excitement building in their faces. Whatever Dad was about to announce, my brothers already knew about it and approved. "After 35 years of building Thompson Industries," Dad continued, "I've made the decision to sell the company. We found a buyer who's willing to pay $50 million for everything we've built." The silence that followed was deafening. I sat perfectly still, waiting to hear what came next, but William couldn't contain his excitement any longer. "This is incredible news, Dad," William said, practically bouncing in his chair. $50 million is more than we ever expected to get for the company. You've really outdone yourself with this negotiation." David nodded enthusiastically and raised his wine glass in a toast. "To Dad for building something amazing and knowing exactly when to cash out. We're going to be set for life." That's when Dad looked directly at me with an expression that was part triumph and part cruelty. "Margaret, I know you've always had ideas about working for Thompson Industries, but that's not going to be possible anymore. We're selling the family business, and you're getting nothing from this transaction." The words hit me like a physical blow, but not for the reason Dad expected. It wasn't the exclusion from the sale proceeds that hurt me. It was the casual cruelty with which he delivered the news. After all these years, he was still finding new ways to remind me that I didn't belong in this family's definition of success. William and David actually started clapping, as if Dad had just announced some kind of victory over me personally. "Finally, Dad's making the right decision," William said with obvious satisfaction. "Margaret never deserved any part of this business anyway. She's been trying to get her hands on Thompson Industries for years," David added. "But she never understood that this company requires real business experience, not just classroom theories." The irony was so perfect that I almost started laughing right there at the dinner table. Here were my brothers, celebrating their good fortune and mocking my capabilities, while completely unaware that their success was actually being funded by the sister they were ridiculing. I took a sip of my wine and smiled calmly at Dad. "That's fascinating news, Dad. Congratulations on finding a buyer willing to pay such a generous price. I'm curious, though, who is the company that's purchasing Thompson Industries?" Dad's chest puffed up with pride as he prepared to share what he obviously considered the crowning achievement of his business career. "The buyer is a company called Everest Holdings. They're a major real estate investment firm with an excellent reputation in the industry. They're paying $50 million in cash, which shows just how valuable Thompson Industries has become under my leadership." I nodded thoughtfully and set down my wine glass. Everest Holdings is definitely a respected company in the real estate industry. Their track record of successful investments is quite impressive. I'm curious, Dad, have you met the owner of Everest Holdings personally? No, they prefer to maintain privacy in their business dealings, Dad replied. All of our negotiations have been handled through their attorneys, which is actually quite common with companies of their caliber. The important thing is that they have the financial resources to complete this transaction, and they recognize the true value of what we've built. The moment had finally arrived. I reached into my purse and pulled out a leather portfolio containing all the legal documents that would prove my identity as the owner of Everest Holdings. I placed the portfolio on the table and looked directly at Dad. Dad, I am Everest Holdings. The silence that followed my announcement was so complete that I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Dad stared at me with a confused expression, as if I had just spoken in a foreign language that he couldn't understand. What did you just say? He asked slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. I said I am Everest Holdings, I repeated, opening the portfolio and spreading the legal documents across the table. I'm the buyer who's purchasing Thompson Industries for $50 million. William was the first to react, jumping out of his chair and pointing an accusatory finger at me. That's impossible. You don't have $50 million. You're working some kind of real estate scam and living in a tiny apartment. I calmly pulled out my company's financial statements and placed them where everyone could see. These documents show that Everest Holdings has assets worth over $60 million and net equity of $52 million. Every number has been verified by independent auditors, and your own attorneys have confirmed that we have the financial capability to complete this transaction. Dad grabbed the financial statements and started reading through them with increasing agitation. This can't be right. Where did you get this money? How could you possibly have built a company this size without anyone knowing about it? I built it the same way you built Thompson Industries, Dad, I replied. I started with nothing, worked 18-hour days, made smart investments, and reinvested every penny of profit back into growing the business. The only difference is that I did it without anyone's help or support. David was frantically looking through the other documents I had spread across the table. These incorporation papers show that Everest Holdings was founded 6 years ago. Margaret, you were only 22 years old 6 years ago. How could you have started a major real estate company when you were barely out of college? Because unlike you, David, I didn't spend my 20s partying and charging personal expenses to someone else's company credit cards, I said, my voice remaining calm despite the anger building inside me. I spent those years learning the real estate business from the ground up, making profitable investments, and building something meaningful. Dad was still staring at the financial documents as if he could make them disappear through sheer force of will. Even if this is real, even if you somehow managed to build this company, why didn't you tell us? Why did you keep this secret from your own family? The question was so absurd that I almost laughed out loud. Tell you? Dad, I tried to tell you about my business ideas for 10 years, and you dismissed every single one of them. I tried to show you my capabilities, and you told me that women don't belong in business. I tried to contribute to Thompson Industries, and you told me to go find a husband instead. I pulled out my phone and showed them photos of some of the commercial properties that Everest Holdings owned. I didn't keep my success secret out of spite, Dad. I kept it secret because I knew that if you found out I was succeeding without your permission, you would find some way to undermine or diminish what I had accomplished. William was becoming increasingly agitated as the reality of the situation sank in. This is insane. You can't just swoop in and buy our family's company. Dad, you can't let her do this. Actually, William, I can do exactly that, I said, pulling out the preliminary purchase agreement that Dad had already signed. This is the contract that Dad executed last week, agreeing to sell Thompson Industries to Everest Holdings for $50 million. The transaction is legally binding, and we're scheduled to close on Monday. Dad's face had gone completely pale as he realized the full implications of what was happening. Margaret, surely we can work something out. This company has been in our family for 35 years. There has to be some way we can keep it in the family. The company will be staying in the family, Dad, I replied. It's just going to be run by the family member who actually has the competence and experience to manage it successfully. That's why I decided to reveal the full extent of what I knew about Thompson Industries' financial condition. I pulled out another set of documents from my portfolio. Dad, I need to show you something else, I said, placing financial analysis reports on the table. These documents detail the true financial condition of Thompson Industries as of last month. The company is currently $8 million in debt, has negative cash flow of nearly $200,000 per month, and would have been forced into bankruptcy within 6 months if I hadn't intervened with this purchase offer. The look of shock on Dad's face told me that he hadn't expected anyone to discover the extent of the company's financial problems. William and David were reading over his shoulder, and I could see the color draining from their faces as they realized how close Thompson Industries had come to complete collapse. Furthermore, I continued, I've been monitoring the situation for 6 months, and I know exactly what caused these financial problems. William's residential development project has lost over $15 million, and David's personal expenses charged to company accounts total over $300,000 in non-business purchases. William tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand to stop him. I also know that rather than address these problems directly, Dad chose to hide the company's financial condition and look for a buyer who would purchase Thompson Industries without conducting thorough due diligence. I spread out additional documents showing the complex financial structure I had used to acquire Thompson Industries' debt. What none of you realized is that over the past 6 months, I've been systematically purchasing Thompson Industries' outstanding loans from various creditors. As of today, Everest Holdings owns 60% of Thompson Industries' total debt, which means I've been your biggest creditor for months without any of you knowing it. The transformation in my family's demeanor was remarkable to watch. Dad, who had started the evening as a confident patriarch announcing his business triumph, was now slumped in his chair, looking like a man who had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. William had gone from celebrating his upcoming windfall to frantically trying to figure out how to maintain his lifestyle without access to family money. David was openly crying, apparently realizing for the first time that his actions had contributed to the near destruction of everything our grandfather had built. "Margaret, please," Dad said, his voice breaking with emotion. "I know I made mistakes. I know I should have treated you better over the years. But surely there's some way we can work together to save Thompson Industries as a family business." It was the first time in my adult life that I had ever heard my father admit he had made mistakes, and under different circumstances, I might have been moved by his apparent change of heart. But I had spent too many years being dismissed and diminished to be swayed by a last-minute apology, motivated by desperation rather than genuine remorse. "Dad, I am going to save Thompson Industries," I replied. "But it's going to be saved by implementing professional management practices, maintaining proper financial controls, and making business decisions based on competence rather than family politics." I pulled out the business plan I had developed for restructuring Thompson Industries after the acquisition. I've spent the last 3 months developing a comprehensive turnaround strategy for the company. We're going to divest the failed residential development project, implement strict expense controls, and focus on the commercial construction work that Thompson Industries has always done well. William was reading through my business plan with obvious reluctance, but I could see that he was impressed, despite himself. These projections show Thompson Industries returning to profitability within 6 months and doubling its revenue within 2 years. How do you plan to achieve these results? By hiring competent professionals to run the company instead of giving executive positions to people based on their last name, I replied bluntly. "William, your marketing background might be valuable in a subordinate role, but you've proven that you don't have the judgment necessary for strategic decision-making. David, your operational experience could be useful, but only if you can demonstrate that you understand the difference between personal expenses and business expenses." Dad was staring at me with a mixture of admiration and defeat. "Margaret, I'm beginning to understand that I seriously underestimated your capabilities. If you're willing to keep Thompson Industries in the family, what role would there be for me in this new structure?" I had given considerable thought to this question, because despite everything that had happened, Robert Thompson was still my father. And he did have decades of valuable experience in the construction industry. "Dad, you built Thompson Industries from nothing into a major regional construction company, and that's an achievement that deserves respect," I said. "Under the new ownership structure, you would have the title of Chairman Emeritus with an annual salary of $100,000. You would serve as an advisor on major strategic decisions, but you would not have operational authority over day-to-day business activities." The offer was generous but not overwhelming, designed to allow Dad to maintain his dignity while ensuring that he couldn't interfere with the professional management I planned to implement. William was clearly struggling to accept the new reality, but David seemed to be coming to terms with the consequences of his actions. "Margaret, I know I screwed up with the personal expenses," David said quietly. "If you're willing to give me a chance to prove myself, I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." "David, trust is earned through consistent actions over time, not through promises made during a crisis," I replied. "If you want to continue working for Thompson Industries, you'll start as a project supervisor with a salary of $60,000 per year. Your performance will be evaluated every 6 months, and any advancement will be based on your demonstrated competence and professionalism. It was a dramatic demotion from his previous position as vice president of operations, but it was also an opportunity for David to prove that he could succeed based on his own merits rather than family connections. William was having a much harder time accepting the new arrangements. "This is ridiculous, Margaret. I've been working for Thompson Industries for 12 years. I've brought in millions of dollars worth of business for this company. You can't just demote me to some entry-level position." "William, you've also lost over $15 million on a residential development project that any competent analysis would have identified as high risk," I replied. "If you want to continue working for Thompson Industries, you'll start as a senior marketing associate with a salary of $75,000 per year. Like David, your future advancement will depend entirely on your performance." The reduction from his previous six-figure executive salary to a mid-level marketing position was substantial, but it was also more than fair given the financial damage his poor judgment had caused. 6 months after that unforgettable Thanksgiving dinner, Thompson Industries had been completely transformed. The failed residential development project was sold to a developer who specialized in distressed assets, allowing us to recover about 30% of the original investment and eliminate the ongoing carrying costs that had been draining the company's cash flow. I hired a professional management team with extensive experience in commercial construction. Our new chief financial officer implemented financial controls that prevented unauthorized expenses and provided real-time visibility into project profitability. Our new operations manager streamlined our construction processes and improved our competitive bidding procedures. The results exceeded even my optimistic projections. Thompson Industries returned to profitability in just 4 months and was on track to generate $12 million in revenue for the year. More importantly, we had rebuilt our reputation in the industry and were competing for larger, more profitable projects than the company had ever handled before. Dad adjusted to his new role better than I had expected. He genuinely seemed to enjoy serving as an advisor without having the stress of day-to-day operational responsibilities. During our monthly strategy meetings, his decades of industry experience proved valuable in helping us identify new market opportunities and avoid potential problems. David surprised everyone by thriving in his reduced role as a project supervisor. Without the pressure of executive responsibilities he wasn't qualified for, he was able to focus on what he did best: managing construction crews and ensuring that projects were completed on time and within budget. His performance evaluations were consistently excellent, and I promoted him to senior project manager after 5 months. William had the most difficult adjustment to the new reality. His ego had been severely damaged by the demotion, and he struggled to accept direction from the professional managers I had hired. After 4 months, he decided to leave Thompson Industries and start his own marketing consulting firm. We parted on reasonably good terms, and I even referred some potential clients to his new business. The most significant change was in my relationship with my family. The anger and resentment that had defined our interactions for years gradually gave way to mutual respect and genuine affection. Dad started asking for my advice on personal financial matters, and we began having regular lunch meetings to discuss industry trends and business opportunities. My mother, who had always been caught in the middle of our family conflicts, was thrilled to see her husband and daughter finally building a positive relationship. She started hosting monthly family dinners, where we could spend time together without the business tensions that had dominated our previous interactions. The success of Thompson Industries under new management had an impact that extended beyond our family. The company became a case study in effective corporate turnaround strategies, and I was invited to speak at industry conferences about the importance of professional management and financial discipline in family-owned businesses. More importantly, the transformation of Thompson Industries opened doors for other women who wanted to pursue careers in construction and real estate development. I established a mentorship program that provided guidance and support for young women entering these traditionally male-dominated industries. The experience taught me that success isn't just about proving other people wrong. It's about building something meaningful that creates value for everyone involved. I didn't buy Thompson Industries to get revenge on my family. I bought it to preserve my grandfather's legacy and to demonstrate that competence and hard work matter more than gender or family politics. Looking back on that Thanksgiving dinner, I realized that the moment when I announced, "Dad, I am Everest Holdings," wasn't really about shocking my family or proving a point. It was about finally claiming my rightful place in a business that I loved and had always been capable of contributing to. The best part of the whole experience was seeing my father's face when Thompson Industries was named Construction Company of the Year by the Regional Business Association 8 months after the acquisition. During his acceptance speech, Dad made a point of acknowledging that the company's success was the result of professional management and strategic decision-making rather than family tradition. Sometimes the best revenge really is simply proving them wrong, but even better than revenge is building something so successful that everyone benefits from your achievements. Today, Thompson Industries employs twice as many people as it did before the acquisition, pays higher wages than any of our competitors, and continues to grow under the leadership of a management team that values competence over connections. As for my relationship with my family, we've learned that love and respect aren't diminished by professional success. If anything, our family bonds are stronger now that they're based on mutual admiration rather than traditional gender roles and artificial hierarchies. The construction industry will always need people who can build things that last, whether those things are buildings, businesses, or family relationships. I'm proud to say that Thompson Industries is now building all three better than ever before. What would you have done if you were in my position that Thanksgiving? Would you have revealed your identity immediately? Or would you have waited to see how far your family would go? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know if you think I handled the situation the right way. If this story inspired you, or reminded you of your own family business drama, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of perseverance. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming family obstacles and building success on your own terms. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who need to see your success the most. Here's to families that grow stronger through challenges and businesses that thrive under confident leadership.